Hey, thanks for popping in. Have you ever tried creating a Joshua wire tree? I tried, but it was many years ago. So here I am trying it again. My name is Carol, artist of Onlytrees, and I'm thinking about how I could make a Joshua tree that looks realistic. Okay, so this is what I came up with so far. So this is what I have in front of me. I'm using copper wire that has been taken off other trees that I've created before. It's a 22 gauge, and I think the maximum length that I have here is probably about 8 inches. I created my root system and I tied everything up with wire instead of rubber bands this time. Hey, something different. Anyway, I'm taking these pieces of wire and making my branches. This is not going to be a big tree, but this is a practice piece. I honestly don't know how it's going to turn out. Randomly pulling out wires to make the branches. Joshua trees don't have a whole lot of branches, but most of their branches are pretty thick. So here I am, just twisting away, making a few branches for the Joshua tree. You can see in the background that I've got some green loops. These green loops I made a little while ago, not recently at all. So my thought process is to use the loops. Yeah, let's just get this thing twisted up so I can start on the part where I need to figure out how to make the tops of the Joshua tree. Okay, I got my branches done. And yes, I did one just before I'm recording this because I want to show you what I did. I am taking my loops, but I changed my loops out to the tricolor loops that I usually use, the teal, the peridot, and the green. What I am doing is taking my wires at the very top of each branch and just twisting them around and then intertwining the copper wire to lock everything in place. What I'm trying to do is make like a plume at the top of the Joshua tree. And you can see I'm intertwining the copper wire along with the green wire using the loops. Honestly, this looks like a knotted mess, but I'm hoping you're seeing the plume on the top of the Joshua tree kind of come to life. Intertwining these tiny little wires, using my needle nose pliers, twisting all of that into place. My thoughts right now is, Carol, put the pliers down before you break off the wire that you're trying to twist. Yeah. All right. So now I have the top of the branch created with all of those loops. Yeah, I'm popping back in. I think those greens that I'm using as the loops on top of this Joshua tree is gonna work. So I'm okay with that. But this next step, this is what I was trying to do. I wanted to make more loops because on the Joshua tree, it grows from the growth that dies off on the branch. So it looks kind of hairy if you see a Joshua tree in real life. So what I was doing was making brown loops and then going to go below the green loops that I've created on top of the branch and angle them downward into the branch itself. Wait for it. Okay, here are my loops. I have to tell you, I got really frustrated already on the first set. No good on this. That's not gonna work. I am so happy that I did not create a lot of those loops. They just were not going to work for what I was thinking I wanted them to work for. So this is what I did for my second attempt. Now, this was easy peasy, but by this time I was getting frustrated. So let me show you what I ended up with. Like I said, this next step that I did, easy peasy. I took 3 strands of 22 gauge wire, 2 brown and 1 antique copper, and I put them up into where the top of the greens were on this Joshua tree, kind of locked it in place, and then went along the same twist line all the way down to the bottom of the tree where the roots were. So here I am going in the same direction that I used to twist those branches. Following the twist line that I used to create the branches, all the way down in between, following the ridge line of the trunk, all the way down. Come on, Carol. Following the wire all the way down, and you can see that I've done this over and over and over again. Just wrapping the wire all the way down to the roots and then down under the roots, bringing it back up again, following the wire, how it was twisted, and coming back up, following the wire, picking a branch. It wasn't the same one as I did before. Still following the twist line, taking my wire in between the branches, and back up into the greens that I put on top of the Joshua tree. I repeated this method until I covered all of the scrap copper wire that I had, twisting in the same direction as the branches. Now that I have everything covered, my next step was to cut off all of the excess, not to the point where you couldn't see any of the brown or bronze, or I'm sorry, brown or antique copper wire, but just clipping off the tops. Did you hear that? I said access. I'm cutting off all of the excess brown and antique copper strands that are on top of the green loops that I created for this Joshua tree. A couple more strands to cut off. And it's kind of getting the effect that I'm looking for, but I am not happy with how the branches turned out. They're just too smooth. It's not what I was looking for. But I continued on because once I start something, I need to finish it. Here I am separating the loops, kind of forming what I'm hoping it will look like afterwards. And yes, I'm going to be cutting these loops, so I want to make sure, look at my loops, make sure they're tight enough so I can go to that next step. Okay, they look pretty good. So I think I'm ready for the next step. Knowing that all of my loops have been twisted nice and tight, it's now time to cut. I'm cutting into the center of each loop, and I will go around to all of those loops and give them a nice clip and move on to the next step. Take your time when you're cutting the loops. When you're doing this step, you might as well do it all at once. Don't forget any. And the sound, doesn't it sound like somebody's clipping their fingernails? Double checking. Did I get them all clipped? All right, now for those needle nose pliers. Pulling out each strand of those loops straight up and forming the top of the Joshua tree. Okay, all done with this particular piece. Now, if I bring it in close, you should be able to see what I have attempted to do. And the top of the Joshua tree looks really good. The color is really good, but the branches for me are just too smooth. So this was a good attempt, but for me, it just isn't right. So I'll be trying this again. Not bad for my first attempt and practicing. I decided to continue on, so I took some more scrap wire and tried only one branch with scrap wire, and this is the effect that I am trying to get. So with a little bit more practice, I know that I'm going to get this. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. When I figure it out, I will share it with you. If you have any questions, any comments, I hope that you'll put them below in the comment section. If you love to create wired trees, I hope that you'll subscribe to this channel. It's all about creating, practicing, and making beautiful wired trees. Thanks, guys. I hope you're having an awesome day, and we will talk soon.